Hey there everybody, it's Nathan Cool with nathancoolphoto.com, and in this episode I'm going to talk about something a bit controversial, and it's going to get some downvotes for sure. It's about outsourcing your editing for real estate photography and videography as well. Once again, this is a very controversial topic. It's one that does need to be addressed. I get a lot of questions about this. Probably about 50% of the photographers that I train bring this up, and one of the reasons they come to me is because they've been outsourcing their editing. Now they need to do some editing because they're at a point where they're just not moving forward. They need to get some better gigs. Now, if you're outsourcing and this is working in your business model, fantastic. I'm going to talk about the risks associated with outsourcing so that you can be better informed from experience that I have in the outsourcing realm, not just for myself, but all the photographers that I train, the feedback that I get, and also first-hand experience. So the first thing about the risks of outsourcing your editing for real estate photography, very common. You have to ask yourself one simple question, and this may be all that it takes to make your decision whether you should do that, or if you're doing it, to stop doing it or continue doing it. The question is, do you want to progress, or are you satisfied with a plateau? So it's a very simple thing that if you're building your model, you think, well, I'm going to progress. I'm getting very busy. This is why you'd want to outsource your editing, because you're thinking, well, I need to move forward. I need to make more money. I need to get more gigs. That is the quantity over quality issue, where instead of progressing, you're gonna eventually hit a plateau. Sure, you can hire more photographers to go out on site. Sure, you can build a business, but as I'm gonna talk about a little bit later on with one of these other risks, that will reach a plateau. It will not progress. You will be stuck in a certain business model. Let's take, for instance, just doing HDR photography. Now, you know that I use lighting, and you know that for what I do, and especially if you've worked with me on one-on-one sessions, you know it's very quick. So my editing process is faster than it is for HDR, and also my time on site is just a little bit longer. But what I'm able to do is, instead of just hitting a plateau where this is all I'm going to be able to do, my business model doing this is able to progress. So luxury markets for real estate, designers, builders, magazines, you get a wide variety of other media type of work that you can do if you progress instead of just hitting a plateau. Also, one of the things I've talked about in other videos is I'd rather take on one $500 gig than to drive to 5 $100 gigs. So that's where you have to think about the quantity over quality issue. But there's something else when it comes to doing either progressing or hitting a plateau, and that's that if you love photography and you got into learning photography and you wanted to progress with that, if you just outsource your editing to a country that has low-cost workers like Vietnam, India, China, whatnot, those people are desperate for work. They'll go ahead and do anything it takes to take your footage, no matter how bad it is, and turn it into something good. Now, it can be questionable. Well, did the editor here really do a good job, whatnot? And also, they tend to be gangbusters coming out of the gate, and of course, they tend to fade their quality over time. A couple things I'll talk about later. But the thing is, you can start taking shortcuts, and you're thinking to yourself, great, I don't have to work as hard. But now you're not progressing at all. The more shortcuts you take, it's just like not going to the gym any longer. You're not going to be building any muscle. You're not going to be getting in shape. You aren't going to be progressing. You have to then rely on a quantity over quality business model, which runs its own risks, but more so is if you got into real estate photography because you love photography, then you are definitely going to hit a plateau. And if nothing else, you also may then start to decline on your skill set. So that's the first risk, but let's consider some other things as well. Editing yourself raises your skill set. So as you're shooting, if you have to edit it, well, maybe I just need to fill in some shadow over here. I just want to make sure I don't get a reflection on this over here, and quick run over and do a few pops. That's what was going through your head when you were on site. As soon as you give that off to an editor that's 4,000, 5,000, 3,000 miles away, They don't know exactly what your thought process was. Now, that's why most editors will just do HDR photography. It's very easy to find real estate photography editors that just process HDR because you just stand up, you do a bunch of brackets, you move on to the next, you do a bunch of brackets. When you're doing quality work, high quality work, and you're actually incorporating then flash photography into that, you have to think about, well, as I'm moving through this, I know what footage I like the best. It took me 8 frames to finally get what I liked when I was flashing. I like this one the best. Your editor isn't going to know that. Now, sure, you could winnow out all that footage, but by the time you do it, now you're losing the benefit of outsourcing that to someone else. Also, by knowing that you have to edit it yourself, you're not going to try to take shortcuts to just try to leave it up to the editors. So once again, if you have an editor that you're insourcing to, we have one, for instance, that does our video here in Los Angeles. And so we give a lot of stuff to Dion. And Dion does a great job. Dion is a phone call away. He's not on another time zone 12 hours away on the other side of the world. And so if he's got a question, he just sends me a quick text, or sends Jonathan a quick text, and boom, we know then, hey, we can answer, yeah, this is what we were thinking. Sometimes he's even on site with us so that he can see what we're doing before he takes the footage. Once again, great video editor that we have in Los Angeles, but that's not something typical of outsourcing. That's what you would consider insourcing, someone directly part of your team locally. So once if people are buying groceries local, why not also hire your editors local? I'm not saying, once again, I'm going to get some downvotes on this, but I'm not telling editors to stop what you're doing. If you're in Vietnam, India, China, you're desperate for work and you need this, up your game. And that's the next thing that I wanted to mention here, is that the risk is that some of these editors don't necessarily have to up their game or feel they need to. So this is my invitation to say, on the third risk here, is to editors, up your game, or eventually someone else is going to eat your lunch. And this is another risk to consider if you're a photographer. So you have to build your business around a sustainable business model if you want your business to be sustained for many years. Sure, you may be busy right now. You're overbooked. You need some help with editing. You start outsourcing your editing. But as soon as you do that, and if you rely on that, then you slowly become just another type of standard cookie cutter real estate photography photo mill, as I call them. I call them photo mills because sure, they're just generic. Somebody goes out there and just gathers the footage. They don't really put a lot of heart and soul into it, and it just gets outsourced to editing. Those are a dime a dozen companies, and if you start competing in that realm, someone's going to eat your lunch. Someone's going to come along and overtake your business. So how do you stand out as a business? Let's say that you were a restaurant. I like to use that as an analogy throughout all the various business aspects of real estate photography and other businesses, because it's one we can really relate to. Why do you go to certain restaurants? Well, you want a restaurant that you like a particular food, service, ambiance, whatever it is. That's why it's your favorite restaurant and it's your go-to restaurant. It's the same thing with real estate photography. If you don't stand out from the crowd, then you're just lost in the noise. That is not a sustainable business model. And once again, that leads you into plateau, which means you won't progress. And if you can't progress, then you also can't diversify into other areas because you don't have that level of expertise. But there's more risks associated with that, even more so. You have to also consider the entire cost of doing business to the level of effort that you're putting towards it. So outsourcing your photos for editing might only cost you 20% of a gig. That's fine, because maybe 50% of that would have been your time editing. So you can get more gigs in during the day to be able to do that. But you also now extend your turnaround time by at least another day. Now, I do know editors that will turn around the next morning. Those tend to be rare to get good quality imagery out of them. So once again, if you're just another Me Too, you're just another photo mill that's out there, and then all of a sudden something comes up and you need to turn something around really quick, well, what do? So I charge premiums if I have a same day turnaround. So it's very common. It's like I'll tell them, okay, first shoot of the day, Boom, if you want it, I can get it to you that night. Someone's hitting me up at a shoot that's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They want it that night. Well, if you pay me a premium, I can, because I can go home and I can edit that. I don't have to wait till the next day, but more so to that point is when you get an edit request. And you might think to yourself, well, I just do standard editing and that's all that they do. For a lot of real estate photography at the lower end of the market, you'll just turn and burn. You'll just put that stuff out there and it'll just get posted on the MLS, some type of listing service. But at the higher end of the market, there are expectations. I have clients that know that I don't send the invoice until they've approved the photos because they may come back with more requests that I charge by the hour to edit for them. So it's finally at the final cost of all the effort put into it, I can get that to them, but I can get that to them much faster. And that's because I do my own editing. And at worst case, even for video, we do insourcing. It's all on the same time zone and it's all within our local team. Longevity is another risk for sustainability on your business model if you're going to rely on outsourcing. So you know that you're always going to be in business because you're the one in control of that. If you're working with an editor you've never even met before, you've just seen some of their work and you're thinking, well, if they go away, I can just pick another one. Well, think again, because not all editors are of the same quality and you might have to go through that again. There is no guarantee that an editor that you're outsourcing to will be there tomorrow. Even if you were to go to some of these companies to do your outsource editing, you don't know who they're going to have edit your next batch of images that comes down the pike. It could be someone else giving you inconsistent results. So if you're going to have a sustainable business model, you need to think about the longevity of any service that you use. And that goes for software, hardware, anything at all. If you're going to invest in any business at all, real estate photography included, you have to make sure that whatever assets you're using, that they have guaranteed or near guaranteed longevity, thus helping you sustain your business model. And of course, real estate photography as a business is a way to pay your bills. It's a way to support your family. Would you put your trust into items that are just of high risk? If you're doing the work and you have people that you can trust, that you've hired, that you know, if you are expanding your business, that's great, that's fantastic. But before you think about outsourcing, know who it is that you are going to be outsourcing to. There's nothing wrong with a Zoom call. Actually be able to interview them. Look through their background. Is it worth it to hire this person to do it? If not, you might be able to reach out to other junior photographers that want to work through the ranks. And they may not be local in your area. They might be just outside of your area so that they wouldn't compete necessarily for shooting, but they could also take on possibly some editing work. They're just not getting the gigs, but they can do the editing and they're a lot closer and they may be lower risk. However you approach it though, it should just be like any other job interview where you are actually speaking to this person one-on-one, face-to-face, whether it's Zoom or otherwise. That will help you guarantee that yes, you have a sustainable business model. You are running this like a business and not just hoping that, well, because I can get off on the cheap, I'm just going to outsource this to somebody who sent me an email. I get hit up, I'm sure you do too, I get hit up every day, but I don't know how many editors. They're either trying to post on my Facebook page, they're sending me messages through Facebook, they're sending me spam email, they try to comment on my YouTube channel here, and it just happens non-stop. There are so many editors out there. I know there's a lot of people that need the income. There's a lot of people that are desperate for it and would very much appreciate me giving them their work. But bear in mind, the reason that I don't do that, or all the risks that I just talked about here, is that it's very difficult to do that. But more so, beyond all, if we revisit point number one, is I don't want my career to plateau. I want my career to constantly progress. And that's why I am in the situation that I am, in the gigs that I get, and I'm so happy and fortunate to be able to work with. Anyways, I know this is a very difficult situation. It's a very controversial topic. I hope that the information I provided here can give you some insight and some food for thought on making your best business decision when it comes to outsourcing editing. If you did like this video and you'd like to see more, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. It won't cost anything, and as soon as one of these videos is posted, you'll be the first to know. Thanks a lot for watching. Until next time, take care, be safe, and get out there and shoot something.